Good day, goeiedag, fellow South Africans. I had to just respond to that fake media post that I put up. I've been doing a bit of research, and you'll see I'm wearing my Zimbabwe hat. I wonder why. I wonder why. Good old Zimbabwe. What happened to their currency? Now, let's look at what's happened in South Africa since the ANC came into power. Okay. In 1994, the African National Congress took power in South Africa, and that was because the whites voted to open democracy because they wanted a future for everybody. Okay, that's a key issue. So all races living together, working together, and growing together. Now, at this time, its paramilitary organization was integrated into the country's regular defense forces. So the ANC's terrorists were brought into the defense forces and became part of them. Convicted bomber Robert McBride, praised by no less than IRA terrorist Martin McGuinness, is the executive director of the Independent Police Investigation Directorate. Now, think about that. He's a terrorist. He's in charge of that department. Touted as a rainbow nation, the fall of apartheid in South Africa was part of an overall feeling of optimism throughout the world surrounding the fall of communism. So it was associated with the fall of communism, and maybe Africa could make it on its own. However, not everything was roses in the new Republic of South Africa. The Truth and Reconciliation Committee was an attempt to lay bare the crimes of the apartheid regime. The tribunal, which did not dispense with sentences but merely sought to find the truth, has been criticized for not dispensing any justice. Neither former National Party government members nor ANC partisans were punished by the commission. So it worked on both sides, black and white. Okay. The elephant in the room at all times was an overwhelming increase in the crime rate. Yeah, the crime rate. The term rapegate entered popular parlance as South Africans installed panic room doors on their bedrooms. Crime is the main reason for emigration from South Africa. Okay, so what you're talking about here is, people who have skills who are fleeing South Africa because of the crime rate. And believe me, it's not whites breaking in. Okay, let's get that right. It's not whites breaking in. In South Africa, you've got open borders, so the rest of Africa is pouring in from the north, and they're hungry. And I guess they're doing what they have to do to try and get food. It makes sense, doesn't it? The 2013 murder rate in South Africa was 7 times that of the United States of America, which is very high in the US. The 11th highest in the world by country. Between 2005 and 2015, over 200,000 South Africans were murdered. That's over 20,000 a year. That is huge. And that's on a country with only 50 million people today. It was less then. Now, the amount of murders in South Africa every year are equivalent to 2 states in America, that of California and Texas. That's incredible, because California and Texas are huge states. This is only the official murder rate as well. I have no doubt there are a huge number of other people being murdered that are not actually recorded. Many suspect that the rate is higher due to disengagement from formal policing and a reliance upon private security firms. Okay? So the government is now passing the buck on to people with assets to pay for security. That's what's actually going on. Quality of public services has likewise deteriorated, with rolling blackouts being the norm in South Africa. And we've talked about how China is now throwing $33 billion in to help Eskom, and where that's going to take South Africa. The ANC presides over what is potentially the largest welfare state in the world, according to economist Mike Schuller. 6%, or 3.5 million South Africans of the population pay 99% of the taxes, while 31%, or 16.4 million South Africans receive social grants. This means that there are five South Africans receiving welfare for every person paying taxes in that country. 71% of South African children live in houses where no adult is employed. 71%! Now, guess who the 3.5 million tax-paying South Africans are? I would suggest about 80% white people. So you take them out, what do you land up with? South Africa has a sweeping affirmative action quota program. Employee demographics must, under the South African Employment Equity Act, represent the racial demographics of South Africa as a whole. This means, for example, the National Power Company was pressured to fire a number of skilled white engineers. They had to fire them. Okay? While the country was going through rolling blackouts. The country has a labour shortage of approximately 800,000 skilled workers and growing exponentially. And you touch the farmer's land and that figure is going to go through the roof, believe me. The affirmative action program has not led to a significant increase in the number of skilled black technical workers. In fact, in 1994, 15% of black South Africans held skilled technical positions. In 2014, the percentage had increased to 18%. Meanwhile, between 1992 and 1997, the number of skilled technical degrees dropped by 13%, while the number of degrees in public administration and social services skyrocketed by 199%. So, you're becoming a social welfare state. That's what you're doing. Finally, the spectre of corruption has hung over the ANC regime. Think of Zuma. Scandals surrounding the ANC government have included bribery, in-arms deals, the abolition of a task force dedicated to organised crime and corruption, sexual misconduct, including criminal charges, and using government and civil organisations to fight its political opponents. And in particular, these government security departments have been targeting the DA, or Democratic Alliance, which is closely associated with the white population in South Africa. So, let's look at the other side. And again, this is partly what we're going to be talking about on Sunday night at 8 p.m. Johannesburg time. Let's think about the white South African farm murders, okay? Let's get some facts on the table here. It is currently twice as dangerous to be a South African farmer than a South African police officer. The murder rate among South African farmers is 3 times that of the standard murder rate in South Africa, which is already one of the highest in the world. Now, the video that I posted earlier today, which was CNN, who don't cover farm murders, they were suggesting that, hey, there's no problem. Whites are not being murdered. There's your fake news. The government claim the motives for the farm attacks are robbery, okay, by probably people who've come in from Zimbabwe or Lesotho or other states, because it's open borders in South Africa now. However, this does not pass the muster. Farm attacks frequently include raping the female members of the household, including young children. That's called pedophilia. And guess what? CNN have never, ever, ever reported on this. But my God, if something like that happened in America, it would be their news for the whole week. That's how corrupt and fake the mainstream media are. Now, not only do they rape female members of the family, including young children, but they force the male members of the household, these are the white members, to watch their children and wives being raped while torturing them. The victims are often then tortured to death in front of each other. That's nice, isn't it? Now, where the hell is CNN? Someone's put in a coffin and that's friggin' news for a day or a week. But here you've got people being tortured in front of each other, having their kids raped while they have to watch, and it doesn't rate a mention on CNN or other leftist American programs like MSNBC, ABC. I mean, it's bullshit. The news in America is bullshit, okay? Just get that straight. Farmers claim police responses to these attacks is sluggish at best and non-existent at worst. So if you've got a farm attack going on where a group of blacks come in and they're raping your family and doing whatever, the police don't even bother to come around. And the government in South Africa stopped collecting statistics about farm murders in 2008. So how dare CNN suggest that it's all fake news when people are claiming that white farmers have been murdered? They are being murdered, and there's a huge amount of evidence on YouTube. But of course, CNN and MSNBC and ABC are just fake news. I don't go near those channels anymore because it's rubbish. They're just rubbish. They're serving their publishers, their masters. And you know who their biggest master is? George Soros. I had a video earlier, which I'll link below, about how George Soros is planning for what they call the open society, where there's open borders, where people can go wherever they like. So the labor is very cheap because there's the whole idea of having a country and having a culture is gone. That is what the mainstream media are wanting to do to the world. Not just South Africa, but to the world. But the complete lack of interest in what's happening to white farmers in South Africa is like the canary in the mine. Okay? Okay. Now, what's more, the attacks on white farmers in South Africa tends to have pitched levels of brutality about them without getting too lost in the weeds of the grisly deaths. It's worth mentioning some of the more grotesque attacks on farmers, at least in passing. In 2012, A 12-year-old boy was drowned in boiling water after watching both his parents murdered and seeing his mother raped in South Africa by a gang of Africans. Yes, you heard me right. A 56-year-old grandmother was gang raped during a robbery, netting approximately $2,000. A 56-year-old. 5 men sexually assaulted a woman in front of her 5-year-old son over the course of an hour and a half. Over the course of 6 hours, a woman was tortured by having her skin cut off, been raped, and had her feet power drilled. That's not a friggin' burglary. A 66-year-old man was beaten to death in front of his wife. She escaped being gang raped by saying that she had HIV. This is crazy stuff, but this is what is not being covered by the fake news. Bedridden Alice Lotter, 76, and her daughter Helen, 57, were tortured to death over several hours, including by being stabbed in the genitals with a broken glass bottle. One had one of her breasts removed while still alive. Kill the Boer was painted on the walls in their blood. Now, you see in the video that I put up about the EFF outside the Supreme Court recently, and I'll link it down below so you can see it again. Malema and the BLF are promoting Kill the Boer. And the courts in South Africa are doing nothing about it. And the mainstream media in America are, you wouldn't know about it. That's how fake they are. Knowledge Mandlazi went on a killing spree in 2014, murdering 5 whites and stating that my hate for white people made me rob and kill. He held up his middle finger to surviving victims in the courtroom. Nice. Another common form of attack is the land invasion. In one example, 100 men began squatting land. The farmer did the sensible thing and left. Who could blame him in that kind of environment described above? So this is what Malema is proposing. As you see a beautiful bit of land, go on it, take it, it's yours. So people who hold title to land, whether they're white, coloured, African or whatever, are now being forced off their land in South Africa by these total mobs. You know, it's crazy. So what is behind these South African farm attacks? Okay, anti-white racism is a popular current in mainstream South African politics. And again, that Malema video outside the Supreme Court shows that. The song Kill the Farmer, Kill the Boer is still publicly sung, despite being declared a hate crime. So what Malema does is he doesn't say kill the Boer, he says kiss. Yeah, kiss the Boer. And that makes it right. That's crazy shit. That's crazy shit. The traditional means of protecting rural South Africans, the commando units, were disbanded in 2003, leaving many South African farmers with no protection. And this is why Saatlanders have come in, and Saatlanders now have about 140,000 members, and they're probably 99% white, but you can understand why they're doing that. I mean, it is just crazy shit. Anti-white rhetoric in South Africa is very real and very mainstream. Here are just a few examples. Velaphi Kumalo, a government official, stated on Facebook in 2016, "White people in South Africa deserve to be hacked and killed like Jews." Okay? Ekurhuleni, EFF leader Mampuru posted on Facebook in 2018, "We need to unite as black people. There are less than 5 million whites in South Africa versus 45 million of us. We can kill all this white within 2 weeks." Yeah, you heard that right. We can kill all this white within 2 weeks. Who can't see the road to a genocide happening here? This is crazy. Major M.V. Malala, a senior official in the South African National Defence Force, said of the murder of a 76-year-old white professor, "It's your turn now, white people." He should have had his eyes and tongues cut out so that the faces of his attackers would be the last thing he sees. He received a mere warning of future disciplinary action. Nice. That's South Africa today. The EFF's national leader, Julius Malema, who I've covered here quite a bit, stated in 2018, "Go after a white man. We are cutting the throat of whiteness." Now, what country in the world can't see that there is a genocide in progress? Why aren't they just opening their doors to white people and saying, "Hey, we will give you refugee status"? This is crazy. Compare this with a woman sentenced to 3 years in prison for calling someone a kafir. Okay, a white woman was sentenced to 3 years in prison for calling someone a kafir. And I hate that term. I never use it. I'm only quoting it because that's what happened. It's not surprising that some South Africans have begun getting trained by Israeli commandos to protect themselves and their properties. So, what are the farm seizures? The South African Constitution has recently been amended to allow for Soviet-style expropriation of farms without compensation. Zululand is exempted. And this is why in an earlier video I suggested that white farmers should be getting in touch with people like the Griqua and looking at doing a deal, getting it in the courts, tribal lands, and doing leases. Because that would just put a hold on any attempt by the Bantu people, who are invaders, just like the settlers were. They're invaders. They came in through KwaZulu-Natal. The settlers came in through the Cape. The original inhabitants were the Khoi and the San. And what the white farmers need to do is to do something with the Griqua, get in the courts, and the government can't act until the courts actually respond to that. And let's hope the courts are fair, but that's another question altogether. Okay, so, just on that point, this is a bit of a nonsensical argument for two reasons. Many white South Africans have been in South Africa longer than most Americans have been in America. They've been there since the 1600s. Second, the dominant black ethnic group, the Bantu, does not have a strong claim to most of the land in South Africa, which I cover in my video, which I'll link below. And because I'm a historian and I know all about the early history of South Africa, you'll see the Bantus only had a tiny piece east of Lesotho. Now they're trying to take the whole lot. This is crazy shit. The Khoisan, okay, the Khoisan, or the Khoi and the San, have got a huge claim over most of South Africa. And the Griqua are direct descendants of the Khoi and the San. And they are the most likely partners to actually make this response by the white farmers work. But the Khois and the San did sell land to the Boers in places like the Free State, but that was, as I said in my earlier video, under duress. They really had nowhere to go. And when the British came through with Cecil Rhodes, they just annexed Griqualand West, didn't they? Because they found diamonds at Kimberley. They weren't interested in the property before then. So there are two huge areas that the Griqua directly have a claim on, but no one's talking about it. This is as if the US government started seizing land from white families in upstate New York, traditionally belonging to the Iroquois, and giving it out to the Cherokee. You hear what I'm saying here? So you got one American Indian group, the Iroquois, who used to inhabit the state of New York, and then saying, that's okay, we're going to give it to the Cherokee, who lived in a totally different area. Do you see the bullshit? Still, despite the fact that farm seizures are precisely the means by which Zimbabwe ended up in such a failed state, there seems to be no stopping farm seizures going on in South Africa. Perhaps worst of all, there are rumours that South Africa's banks intend to collect mortgage payments even after property has been confiscated. Now, I will be talking specifically about that point on Sunday night at 8 p.m. Johannesburg time, and I will explain to you why they cannot do it. So subscribe and be there, and you will see what bullshit this is. The banks have turned over and they're now running with the Africans because that's what they do. That's what they do. That's a bank for you. In the final analysis, the farm seizures in South Africa aren't just about dispossessing an unpopular market-dominant racial minority, which is the white people, though that would be disturbing enough. It's also a threat to South Africa's incredibly fragile democracy. The ANC is a dominant party with little chance of losing elections and thus little reason to behave accountably. Look what happened under Zuma, the most corrupt man in Africa, and he's still not behind bars. It's crazy. Add to this the lack of broadside middle class with a vested interest in strong property rights, and you have a recipe for kleptocracy and starvation. Believe me, South Africa is like a melting pot going into oblivion. But anyway, please subscribe. I have some new migration options coming up for South Africans that I will be talking about hopefully in the next week or two. But I'll see you Sunday night, 8 p.m. Johannesburg time. Okay. Alles van die beste. Tot ziens.